The scary parts of our fiction, our monsters, are diverse because of how many ways we interact with the world. If we were another species writing fiction, we would have different monsters. If orcas probably wouldn't have any monsters in their fictional stories because there's nothing that scares orcas, nothing hunts them down and kills them. Whereas if white-tailed deer or squirrels were going to be writing fictional stories, they would have a deep menagerie of monsters because they seem to be afraid of everything. The way we interacted with our world has changed over time, and what we find to be scary as a species has changed too. Our stories used to focus on the big bad wolf, bridge trolls, beasts and dragons in the dark forests and caves. Basically, we were afraid of the dark, and we were afraid of being eaten by the things in the dark. This seems perfectly on brand for someone living at a time when civilization had just barely carved a place for itself, distinct from nature. Reflecting on the monsters, the scary parts in our current fiction, the things we find frightening, can be a way to look at how we're interacting with the world now. The number of zombie movies and stories that take place after an apocalyptic fall of civilization show us that a shared fear of ours is that our civilized world may be on shaky ground. A viral outbreak movie or a novel about what happens to the world after atomic bombs are dropped resonate with a modern audience but would be completely foreign to a medieval one. There will always be a place in fiction for actual monsters, but I get the sense that our societal fear of demonic possessions or witchcraft, evil spirits, werewolves, hauntings, and vampires is ebbing. The big bad wolf archetype is now a parable character for children and no longer taken serious by adults as something to fear for real. Even much more recent boogeymen have faded from serious concern to half joking status, such as flying saucer abductions, alien invasions from Mars. Whereas Orson Welles was able to scare a nation with the fictitious invasion from Mars, I think our society now is a little bit more credulous of that specific threat. Some of the monsters and boogeymen that are in our current fiction take the shape of desert landscapes ravaged by climate change, the incapable of supporting life on Earth. Our heroes may gallantly try and vanquish these, so to speak, foes by flying off through interstellar space or jump-starting the core of Earth or saving the planet from superstorms that freeze whole continents. The Earth itself failing is a modern boogeyman, but that wouldn't have made any sense to Shakespeare or Virgil or Homer or any authors from hundreds of years ago. Even when the same fears exist as we faced in the past, we may face it in different ways, which creates new and interesting boogeymen. What happens after death has been terrifying people for countless millennia. Odysseus and Dante travel to their respective representations of the afterlife, but modern incarnations of the afterlife in fiction might look like uploading our consciousness into a computer, or modifying our aging bodies, or even replacing our bodies altogether. The question of what happens after we die is still a scary one, but the boogeyman that we use to symbolize that fear in our fiction looks very different than it has in the past. One of the most famous and enduring monsters of all time, that creature made by Frankenstein, might have been far more prescient than we would have guessed. Mary Shelley turned the mirror on humanity when she envisioned a creature that was created by humankind, something artificial that nevertheless thought and spoke like we do. Now, 200 years later, we are creating artificial intelligence all over again, and it's providing plenty of fodder for us fiction writers to craft into imaginary boogeymen. The fiction we write can be a very important tool to help our society understand itself and to understand the threats and risks we face, even if they're now largely self-inflicted. Writing and reading fiction with scenarios of how it all goes wrong and artificial intelligence takes over the planet, is a very important thing to do. And hopefully, if we imagine the risks, we can better avoid them.